what's the status of private company reporting?
So on the accounting side, private company reporting has been an area that we have been at the AICPA and the state societies around the country have been very active in as well. And for those who, like me, have gray hair and been around the profession for a long time, you know that this has been an issue that has been out there for I like to say, more than 30 years. In fact, we just celebrated last week FASB's 40th anniversary as a separate institution. And you know, very early on in the existence of FASB in the mid-1970s, the issue of differential standards became an issue. And there was really never any traction in that, much to the chagrin of a lot of small firm practitioners and small businesses. And we really stepped up the issue in the 2000s and certainly around you know, 2009, 2010, et cetera. As a result, we have seen in the last 6 months, let's call it, you know, the end of 2012 and the early of 2013 and throughout 2013, more advancement in the notion of differential reporting standards for private companies than any time in that 40-year history. Mm-hmm. And really, it's on two tracks. In the formal GAAP area, after the work of a blue ribbon panel, the Financial Accounting Foundation, which oversees FASB and GASB, established something called the Private Company Council, which interfaces, interworks with FASB, and its mission is to propose standards or modifications to standards that would be different for private companies, for non-public companies. And there are exposure drafts out there in 3 areas today, and there's more being debated in the pipeline. And that's a very positive improvement from that standpoint. In addition to that, there are millions of small businesses in the United States, literally millions, who prepare financial statements in some form or fashion, but do not prepare them today on the basis of GAAP. And we have what's called an other comprehensive basis of accounting regime in the U.S. that's sort of a wild, wild west. There's not a lot of consistency to it. You know, there's tax basis and cash basis and modified, you know, cash basis, and you could go on as to different scenarios there. And what we have done at the AICPA is we've produced not a standard, but a framework for an other comprehensive basis of accounting for small and medium-sized enterprises that attempts to sort of rationalize some of the inconsistencies and sort of the wild, wild west that's been out there. That smaller firms predominantly and their smaller business clients, and not necessarily in a size spectrum, but a simpler financial reporting structure, let's call it, would be able to use. They can compile, review, or audit against it. And so what we have seen in the marketplace is sort of a framework for a meaningful, consistent, other comprehensive basis of accounting, private company GAAP, and of course GAAP as set by FASB for the public companies. Now some people say, well, that's confusing. And that's a legitimate, you know, con to this pro. And there are pros and cons in anything that happens. I would just add, in closing on this area though, the complex world we live in, to believe that there is one answer, one U.S. GAAP that applies to 20+ million businesses or 8 million businesses that prepare financial statements in some form or fashion in today's world is pretty hard to believe. That the circumstances, the complexity, the fact that GAAP is driven by sort of the disparate investor who does not have any nexus with the public company, and that's the right answer for private companies, is just probably a notion that's outlived its time. And so some choices in that process, not sort of, you know, pick from column A and pick from column B, but rather choices in the system that you follow probably makes the most sense. And by the way, other countries have it as well. The UK has it, Canada has it. So these are not undeveloped economies that also have taken that pattern.